Hi guys. In this video, I'm demonstrating how I made a mask for the witch in Into the Woods. Now for this project, I had to make a life cast of the actor's face. So I'm going to show you guys how I created a life cast, kind of like this, all right, out of concrete, and then the materials that I used to create the mask. It was all new for me. I've never used these type of materials before, and so it was a lot of fun learning how to use those materials and create a really great costume piece. So enjoy the video. Hi, welcome to live casting and mask making. As you can see, I have the actor who's being very patient with me as I apply a silicone-based goo to her face. It's called Body Double, made by a company called Smooth On. And this product comes in two parts, and you have to mix the two parts in equal amounts. And one's blue, one's pink, and as you stir it together, it turns purple. And once it is a nice creamy consistency, you apply it to whatever you want to create a mold for. The next step is applying plaster strips. These plaster strips have to be wet and applied to the face. After everything is dry, then you begin to peel off the hard outer shell of the plaster cast. And as you can see, there's the silicone mask. It's coming off quite nicely. You have to peel it off very gently. You don't want to pull out any eyebrows or eyelashes or anything like that. And once it's removed, you have a perfect replica of the person's face. So the next step is filling the mold. So what we've done is we've created a cast, we have to fill the mold. I like to use this type of concrete. It's a quick set concrete, 1 part water, 5 parts dry concrete. And you end up with your little shell like this, okay? And you have to fill it with the concrete and let it dry. I like the quick set because it dries very quickly. Once it's all done, you remove all of the pieces, you separate them out, and you are left with a wonderful concrete mold that you can then work with. So to create the mask, I first covered the mask in tin foil. Then I created a pattern by applying duct tape and marking it with a marker. And then I used a product called PVA foam. PVA foam you can buy at any craft store. So after I created my pattern, I took some of my foam and laid the pattern out and mirrored it. So there's 2 sides to the pattern, and I cut them out with an X-Acto knife, and then I glued them together with contact cement. Okay, contact cement is great because it has a really strong bond and it has a pretty long working time. So once you apply it, you let it dry, you get it kind of tacky, you fuse the pieces together, and they will hold really, really well. The next thing I did was use a heat gun to shape the mask, and then I used a product called Foam Mo. The Foam Mo is like clay, but it's not messy. It's really interesting material, really interesting consistency, and I used it just like clay. I used a little bit of water to keep my hands a little wet and to make shaping everything really easy, and it just flowed extremely well. I really liked using this product. It felt just like clay, but there was absolutely no mess, and the working time was sufficient so that I could continue to shape it and mold it and add details for a while. But after about 5 or 10 minutes of exposure to air, it starts to get kind of leathery, so you do have to work fast. You have to know what you're doing when you get into the project. And then it takes about a day for it to dry. So once it finally dried, the finished product ended up looking like this. I think it turned out pretty well. The next step was to use a product called Plastidip to coat the Foam Mo. And then I used a plastic bag, kind of like this guy's doing, to apply a base coat with just regular latex paint like we use in the shop. It was a brown latex paint. That was my base coat. And it dried pretty nicely, had some of that texture come through. And then I used an airbrush to brush in highlights and shadows and things like that. I really like using an airbrush. It's a great way to craft things. And then I used a pet brush to brush out yarn that I had to make the eyebrows. And after it was all painted and put together, this was the final product. And I think it turned out really, really well. So I look forward to using it next year for our production of Into the Woods. Thanks, guys.